Democracy is a lie. We are fed the illusion of choice, but it is exactly what it says on the tin. An illusion. An illusion to give you a sense that you have some kind of freedom of choice in a world where there's really no choice at all. I've had my suspicions for a while that politics and democracy in general is all just a big sham. Growing up in Britain, every politician to me seemed like the same person in just a different colour tie. We all go to give our little vote in our little polling stations in those little booths to vote for our favourite colour tie. But realistically, there's actually no difference to whichever tie is in government. Nothing really ever changes, life is always the same, and all the changes that they seem to love to boast about on TV doesn't actually affect our day-to-day lives as normal people. It just seems phony. So of course, I've done some digging, and well, to my surprise, I'm not surprised, my suspicions were pretty accurate, and everything I suspected was not only true, but actually a whole lot deeper than I thought. Hey, happy Thursday! We're in August, so you know what that means. Football season starts again, which means fathers and husbands around the country are rejoicing that their one escape from their households is back on the horizon, and they can finally return to the home that they enjoy. It's just a joke, relax. Welcome back to another episode of Debunking the Lunacy. Today we will be debunking the lunacy of the idea that we live in a democracy, and the idea that we have much of a say, if any, in, well, anything at all, really. The term democracy was first coined by the Greeks of Athens, meaning rule by the people. The term emanates from two Greek words that mean people, demos, and rule, kratos. National Geographic provides that democracy is the idea that the citizens of a country should take an active role in the government of their country and manage it directly through elected representatives. In addition, it supports the idea that the people can replace their government through peaceful transfers of power rather than violent uprising or revolution. Thus, a key part of democracy is that people have a voice. What a great idea, if only it were the case. Democracy is more precisely defined in the Oxford Dictionary as a political system that allows the citizens to participate in political decision-making or to elect representatives to government bodies. Yeah, because we really have such an active say in political decision-making. The question surrounding the validity and utility of democracy can be traced back all the way to ancient Greece. Ancient Greek philosopher Socrates critiqued the idea of birthright democracy, the idea that anyone born into a democracy should have a say. And he presented the following problem with the idea. Socrates provided that voting in an election is a skill, and giving the vote to everyone is irresponsible. I can agree with that. Both Plato and Socrates argued that the uneducated masses were unfit to both elect a ruler and to vote for the best policy. So Socrates suggested a solution to birthright democracy. He suggested intellectual democracy, where only those who think about it should be allowed to vote. This presents another problem, which is that democracy is only so good as the educational system around it. Which, when you look at our current educational systems, we're not taught anything that could actually make us competent or intellectual enough to have any real power to make a change. No, our educational systems are literally designed to make us the perfect 9-to-5 servants, and most of all to ensure that we do not question our rulers, because they always have our best interests at heart. One of Socrates' great arguments for intellectual democracy can be found in Plato's Republic. Socrates argues, who should choose the captain of a ship? Common people, or sailors who are experienced and possess the knowledge necessary about survival on ships? Socrates simply wants a society that only the ones that possess the knowledge necessary to choose a leader votes for one. His fear is that uninformed people are more susceptible to manipulation of those who are with ill intent. A great rhetorician who has no intention of being a leader but only the intention to fatten their wallet can easily sway the masses to vote for them. We would call this type of politician a demagogue. Again, Socrates provides a great analogy to better understand this. He gives the example of the doctor and the sweet shop owner. The sweet shop owner can give the argument against the doctor that he gives you bitter syrups and pokes holes in you, he cuts your skin and takes your blood, but he, the sweet shop owner, can offer you many sweets and candies. Surely no one with their right mind would vote for the doctor. The sweet shop owner in this story is the demagogue. So, in our modern day Western democracy, we elect representatives who we believe are perhaps more informed to make decisions on matters of policy than, say, the average Joe. So, we could argue in a sense that we have intellectual democracy. which is a good thing. That would firstly require us, the people, to be able to verify the intellect of our representatives on the matter of their policies, which we don't really have a say in. The problem is, politics is now far too tainted and corrupted by cronyism. Cronyism is the appointment of friends and associates to positions of authority without any proper regard to their qualifications. A reason for how this has happened could be found in the fact that big government and big business are now far too closely aligned because of lobbying. Lobbying is when individuals, businesses, trade unions, groups, or charities try to get a government to change its policies. Essentially, it's political persuasion to influence the people who make the rules, the legislators, and the regulatory agencies. Lobbyists are basically very good sales reps, and this is all far too easy to achieve when we look at the phenomena of the revolving door. So, imagine you have lobbyists here on one side, and the politicians, the rulemakers, here on the other side. In the middle is a revolving door. Oftentimes, the politicians want to make more money, so they will leave their side, enter through the revolving door, and go work on the other side as a lobbyist for a private company. Along with them, they take their high connections and overall influence. This phenomenon of the revolving door analogy can be seen in many industries, where people will go from regulating an industry to them working in that industry, and sometimes back and forth between the two. And private companies will pay top dough to have people with such power, influence, and connections on their payroll. In return, the politicians will conveniently pass a few laws here and there that will inevitably benefit their future employers and ultimately their own pockets too. And the door continues to revolve. We see all of these different laws that benefit some companies and inhibit others. Either way, they're all making money and it's not really harming them. But who does pay the price? Because someone always does. Yes, that's right. You and I, all the way down at the bottom of the pile, having to deal with the consequences of the changing laws and policies left, right, and centre. A paper published to Sage Journals titled Life After Whitehall shows the career moves of British special advisors. Published on January 5th of this year, the paper provides analysis of an original dataset mapping the first job each special advisor landed in after leaving government shows that the vast majority land in corporate lobbying and policy advocacy roles. So thanks to lobbying and cronyism, we definitely don't have Socrates' vision of intellectual democracy in place, but rather a democracy built up of demagogues. American writer, reporter, and political commentator Walter Lippmann published in 1922 his book titled Public Opinion, which poses a straightforward question very similar to Socrates' critique of democracy over 2,520 years ago. Can citizens achieve a basic knowledge of public affairs, then make reasonable choices about what to do? Lippmann's answer is no. And the whole point of the book is to expose the gap between what we say democracy is and what we know about how human beings actually behave. Lippmann provides the concept of organised or guided democracy, which is essentially the illusion of choice. Under guided democracy, the state uses propaganda techniques to prevent the electorate, you and I, from having any significant impact on policy. Professor of linguistics and writer Noam Chomsky proposes that there are two conceptions of democracy in his book, Media Control: The Spectacular Achievements of Propaganda. One conception of democracy has it that a democratic society is one in which the public has the means to participate in some meaningful way in the management of their own affairs and the means of information are open and free. He adds that if you look up democracy in the dictionary, you'll get a definition something like that. The alternative conception of democracy is that the public must be barred from managing their own affairs, and the means of information must be kept narrowly and rigidly controlled. Chomsky emphasizes that that may sound like an odd conception of democracy, but it's important to understand that it is the prevailing conception. In fact, it has long been, not just in operation, but even in theory. If we briefly circle back to Walter Lippmann, we can find that there are two functions involved in democratic participation, for which he provides the following terminology for the two groups. Firstly, the specialized class. A small percentage of people, the responsible men, they carry out the executive function, which means they do the thinking, planning, and understand the common interests. They more than likely genuinely believe to some extent that they're doing good. There is that of the bewildered herd. They are purely spectators of action. This is the majority. People like us, with no power, believing we live in a democracy and that we have a say. The specialized class tame the the bewildered herd into guided democracy. America's fourth president, James Madison, said, "The primary responsibility of government is to protect the minority opulent against the majority," which corroborates with Chomsky's claim that the alternative conception to democracy has long been in operation. We're simply spectators in democracy. We are not participants. We're just fed the illusion that we're participating. So how are we all so oblivious? Renowned psychologist, physiologist, and great thinker during the 20th century, Sigmund Freud, is referred to as the father of psychoanalysis. Freud provided that he had discovered primitive sexual and aggressive forces hidden deep inside the psyche of all human beings that linked back to our animalistic heritage. Forces for which, if not properly controlled, led individuals and societies into chaos and destruction. In the age of mass democracy, Freud's theories are used to control the savage crowd. It was actually Freud's nephew, Edward Bernays, who was the first person to take Freud's ideas of human behavior and use them to manipulate the masses. Edward Bernays helped to revolutionize and executed guided democracy in society. He is the author of Crystallizing Public Opinion and is considered a pioneer in the field of public relations and propaganda. Bernays and Freud's daughter, Anna Freud, invented the profession of public relations. They ultimately showed corporations and then governments how to manipulate people to want things that they didn't need by linking produced goods to their unconscious desires. These tactics were utilized by the US government, big business, and the CIA to manage and control the masses, and are continuously used today. The methods are highly effective. Instead of repressing the self, they infinitely feed its desires, ultimately keeping us sheep blind and asleep to their control through satisfaction. The first successful propaganda campaign by a modern government was during World War I in the US. This was under the Woodrow Wilson administration. Chomsky argues that during this time, most Americans were pacifists and wanted no part in the war. Wilson's government created a propaganda machine for which Edward Bernays was one of the young recruits. The initial campaign was called the Creel Commission, which succeeded in 6 months, turning the once pacifist population into a hysterical, warmongering one that hated anything German. The main control tactics used to control and propagate the masses within a democracy are fear, slogans, selective perception, creating division, the us and them mentality, the public illusion of separate parties, and public education. The Creel Commission used just these tactics, and I'm sure we can all think of many examples where fear, slogans, selective perception has been used in modern day history to propagate populations. Just a couple of examples that initially spring to mind for me are weapons of mass destruction in Iraq and support our troops. In just my lifetime alone, we've heard not Flash, just Gordon. Let's take back control. Get Brexit done. Stay home. Stay alert. Hands, face, space. And this is the political arena, and has been for a long time. But of course, to most of us bewildered herd, especially when kept happy with all of our desires fulfilled and satisfied, especially now in the age of instant next day deliveries, takeaways, fast food, Instagram likes, and everything else, we're none the wiser to what's really going on. There's a reason politicians that are actively anti-establishment are demonized, whether it be on the left or the right. It's the politicians that are actively and regularly villainized and targeted by the media that are the ones trying to help show people the name of the game and wake people up to this model of participants and spectators. I can't think of any examples of politicians such as this over here in the UK, but I can think of a current one in the US. I'm sure you know who I'm referring to. The belief that satisfaction of our individual desires is of the highest importance dominates our society and infiltrates our politics, especially on the left, where supporters are fed the lie that you can regain your individual power under the guise of a better democracy that is purely centered around feelings and ultimately unconscious and often twisted desires. It seems to me, at least, that the only way to have any kind of power, or at least individual sovereignty, is to live in concrete reality. I hate to break it to you, but here in reality, your feelings do not matter, nor do your desires. We must wake up. We must think for ourselves and understand that we are nothing but cogs in this great machine. And so long as we're self-indulging in the instant gratification of feeding our desires, falling for temptations of lust, greed, and living in blissful ignorance, we will forever be bewildered and controlled. Do you still believe in democracy? If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up on your way out, and why not share it with a fellow member of the bewildered herd. For more Debunking the Lunacy episodes, subscribe to my channel, and I very much look forward to seeing you over there. Let me me know your thoughts and ideas in the comments below, and please highlight anything I've missed or expand in further detail. Let's help each other broaden our awareness of the reality of the world around us. And in doing so, as always, let's remain harmonious in the adversity of opinion. See you next time.